I'm delighted that you have come, and I'm delighted about the many graduate students I'm also seeing here. And I hope you all brought your cell phones. You will hear why in a moment. Let me introduce Monica Bugallo quickly. I mean, it's a potentially very long introduction I could give, but I want to leave time for our discussion. Monica is by training an electrical engineer, and she is part of the electrical engineering faculty. She is a full professor since 2017. And she wears other hats, as you know. She is also the Vice Faculty Director, Women in Science and Engineering, since 2016. She has become this year Associate Dean for Outreach and Diversity. And she's also now, after the unexpected and very sad passing of Professor Ferguson, the PI for STEM Smart. So because we are the department that is the home for these outreach and diversity projects, we are now even more linked to Monica in that role that she plays. She is also has become a billionaire in her own right. You know that the dean has, for faculty who bring in $1 million+ in research funds, that person becomes a member of the Millionaires Club. So we have had David Ferguson representing this department for 4 years in a row with his grants. He was one after the other, the only member in the College of Engineering that got so many $1 million grants. Now David Tonjes has picked up on that tradition with his $4 million grant, but you get it only, I mean, how many $1 million you get? You come it only once, so you have to get it another time, another year. And so Monica has also gotten that. And I would also like to add, because when a person like Monica does many things that are, and things among them that are more visible than others, somehow the professional side of the person may get a little bit backgrounded or so. So if you are Associate Dean for Diversity, that's a public role, right? That gets noticed. But when you win a prize in your profession, then only if it's not a Nobel Prize, then only the closer community notices that. So among other things that Monica won, she received the Ada Byron Award. Ada Byron, who knows, was also known as Ada Lovelace. She worked in the early 19th century with Charles Babbage on the first computer that was a kind of modern computer but operating mechanically. I'm a historian of science, I could tell a long story. But that's a wonderful award that she won for an exceptional professional career path, and a path that inspires women to join engineering. And so that's something really to be cherished. And I think we can be proud that you won that. And with that, I would basically like to only say one more word. The last sentence in the abstract that Monica provided for her upcoming talk, she says that engineering is a profession that promotes social and economic mobility. And that, I think, is a deep thought, that in the current context where we are struggling with increasing the number of women in engineering, So you have actually a field that is very much linked to change and, in a way, potential diversity. But it's an uphill struggle. So you need role models, and you need ideas, and you will hear some of these ideas that can use the power of engineering to increase diversity and mobility and the things we need to get in order to move forward and erase long-standing inequalities that have marred. I mean, when we meet in the chairs and deans meeting, there is no woman chair, and now there is only one woman professor in that round, right? So that's very different from, let's say, the College of Arts and Sciences. I mean, as you know, I came from the College of History, the Department of History. This is over 50% are women in that field. So engineering still has to not only catch up, but change. And you may know, this department has the motto, engineering has become too important to be left to the engineers. And I think you will say something that illuminates that. Thank you for coming.
No problem. So thank you very much for the opportunity to talk today in your, I think, bi-weekly or monthly meetings. The first thing that I wanted to do, because my talk today is a little bit general about my vision on engineering education and on some of the outreach and diversity programs that I've been honored to participate in. Much of my talk is about getting also your feedback about how you think you have different opportunities or different improvements that need to be done in your department. So either if you are a faculty member and a staff member or also a student, I would like that you go through your computers or your cell phones to this URL, and there will be some questions down the road in my presentation that basically I would like that you respond to. They are anonymous questions, so you will respond anonymously and nobody will know, but I think it's also a very good thing for your chair to know what you think about some of the strengths and some of the weaknesses are in the department in order to modernize it a little bit and to just address some of the pressing issues that engineering education faces today. So I will give you just 1 minute to go there, and probably you will just see a blank page right now, but in like a second you will start seeing some questions there. So I don't know if anybody has been able to go there. Not yet? So you shouldn't see anything yet, okay?
Well, I got a question.
You got a question, so probably you are able to see the first one. That is, if you could improve one thing related to education in your department, what would it be? And you can just write immediately as soon as you see that question in your screen. Somebody wrote Monica. So if you could improve one thing related to education in your department, what it would be? Outreach, increased rigor. Maybe somebody wants curriculum innovation, diversity. There are a lot of things that maybe, or maybe nothing, right? If we think that our department is perfect. And I can provide later with a summary of all those responses that you will be given. So Professor Schaefer will also get that. So more faculty. The reason why I start with this question is because after the talk that I will give and the discussion that we will have, you may change what you're writing, okay, about this question in particular. Public research presentation by students and faculty, better collaboration technology, clarity and higher standards, cohesive goals, technical research, I guess, enhance interdisciplinary experiences. I will just wait for a couple of more and then we will move on. No more responses? More faculty. So more faculty is something that there are already 2 people that are.
That's a nice software.
Interesting. Yes. Better grades. Okay. Okay, so the title of my presentation is Exploring Alternative Approaches to Engineering Education. And I gave a similar presentation not long ago to the chairs and the deans, and I entitled it Innovation Starts with Education, because environments. And one of my personal goals as an educator here at the university is to help modernize the curriculum and to help modernize how that curriculum is also delivered to the students, and how we can also with that make all the students aware that engineering is everywhere and at every time and at any time. So many of the things that I'm going to talk about today resonate with all those ideas. This is the outline that I scheduled for today, and I thought that the roadmap of my presentation is similar to when you plan a trip. Okay, so basically first you dream, so you have a kind of a motivation, then you learn about the place that you want to visit or the places that you'd like to potentially visit, so you just also have your landscape view. Then you plan. So you have a proposal of what you want, how you want to go about it. Then you experience it. So you do your trip. So basically you implement what you are going to do in the case of your activities. And then you share. Once you come back, you share your feedback about the place. So that is the conclusions. And all the time I talk about engineering accessible to everybody, everywhere, and at any time. I started working, so basically my background is in computer science and engineering. I graduated with a bachelor degree and a master degree from Spain in computer science and engineering, and later when I did my PhD I moved towards electrical engineering, and I specialize in statistical signal processing. So I am also kind of a multidisciplinary person in terms of my background. Around 2005-2006, when I was already here at the Stony Brook University, I started collaborating with people in the physics department on a big project. It was an educational project that was called Mariachi. You may have been familiar with it in the past. It was a project to detect cosmic rays. I was doing the part of the signal processing for them, but the biggest part of the project was that we were educating high school teachers and students to help us with the research of that project. So we would meet with them, we would teach them how to build the hardware, how to also run the algorithms that we were developing, and then they would go back to their schools and would run the projects, and we were collecting data from different schools in order to just infer our research. So it was my first big educational project that I was involved in, and since then I've been constantly moving from different projects related to engineering education or STEM education. But what really motivates me is that there is a need currently about how we reimagine engineering education. And I think there are 3 main objectives that we should all have in mind. The first one is that we should be able to provide opportunity to students, to faculty, to staff, to teachers, to counselors, to administrators. Second thing, we should provide role models and mentors. There is a fine line distinction between what a mentor is and what a role model is. And the third part that is extremely important is about communication and teamwork. So I think that partnerships are extremely important in order to succeed in many of these enterprises. As faculty director of the Women in Science and Engineering program, I learned that there are so many possibilities on campus, and that many times we are duplicating efforts when we can be collaborating and just saving on resources. That is extremely important that we establish partnerships not only on campus but also off campus. And my main motivation for many of the things that I've been doing is that the world currently is challenged by complexity. And as I said, I work on my basic research on statistical signal processing that is applied to complex systems. And I got my NSF Career Award on Bayesian methodologies for resolving complex systems. And what I found out is that many of my colleagues are working on many complex systems. I have colleagues in ecology and evolution that work on climate change. I have colleagues in chemistry that work in evolution of cancer cells or in development of drugs, for example. There are colleagues of mine that work in the gynecologist department in order to analyze data and to see how we can detect or how we can just do detection of C-sections on time, for example. All those are complex systems that in fact impact in a very sensitive way the society. There are currently now 7.5 billion people in the world planet, and 9 billion people will be expected by the middle of the century. So there are many questions and many threats: sustainability, global health, climate change, and the expectation is that every generation will live at least as good and hopefully better than the previous one. So there are many challenges that, and these are research ideas and process ideas that NSF have identified as the 10 big challenges for the next few years. And you can go to the NSF page and say 10 big ideas, and you will see it there. They have few ideas that they address many of these points where they are just calling for proposals regarding all these different pockets of ideas. So we need to educate engineers that have a different way of thinking, that they have like the broader picture, that they are able to understand that with their particular discipline or their pocket discipline, they will be able to address and collaborate with other people to resolve these problems. And by the way, when you discuss about sustainability, complexity, and human condition, that is way more interesting for the students than just discussing formulas about how to build a bridge. Okay? So those are things that we have not been doing in the past, because in many cases, right now, there are 4 generations working together in the workforce of engineering right now, from baby boomers to Generation Z, and most of the departments are educating them in the same way that we used to educate baby boomers. So the point is that we need to evolve the way that we educate these people, because they are different minds thinking in different ways and facing different problems. Students today have not seen the world without technology. And technology is a must for education. So this is effective engagement compared to the baby boomers and the Generation Z. Before you were able to engage verbally, now visually. Before they would sit and listen, now they try and see. So hands-on is extremely important. Before there were teachers, now there are facilitators. Before they would ask about what, now how. And the curriculum was centered, now is learner-centric. The students want to learn whenever they want, the way they want, and at the moment that they want. So, next question. How often and how do you provide one-on-one feedback to undergraduate students in your class? Or if you're a student, how many times have you been provided with feedback directly from the teacher, personalized feedback? Okay? So like, for example, sporadically, once or twice a semester, only through grades provided in paper quizzes. That's a way to provide with feedback. Sporadically, once or twice a semester, I personally call to come and visit me during my office hours. Quite often, bi-weekly, I personally call them to come and visit me during my office hours. Very often, I see all the students personally every week and thoroughly provide feedback. Never. And this is very important, and it is extremely important when we talk about underrepresented minorities. There are many studies that indicate that it is extremely important for retention of students to provide personal feedback, to tell them where they are sitting in the classroom and how they are doing, and what can we expect and how we can just how can they improve their performance? That is extremely important. So I see that there is like a variety, right? Probably very often it is like too much sometimes for time consuming, but it would be very important to provide that feedback often so we are able to help those students to be retained in those majors. So we need to listen to the audience. So we need to learn what are the students that we are educating today and what makes those students tick. So 95% of our students use YouTube. 50% say they cannot live without it. They spend 20 hours or more a month engaging with video content on personal computers. 85% watch at least one online video per week to learn a new skill. That's also very important. When we are talking about, for example, our Blackboard content for the students, maybe we can upload videos for them to learn some of their skills, right? 74% spend 2 hours a day on social media. So they also know what they need in order to succeed, or at least they think that they know, right? So what they consider that is the most important thing in order to succeed are communication skills, and then the problem-solving skill. And also what they feel that they need to improve is public speaking and communication skills. They are ready and eager to learn everywhere and at every time. So they say that having a college education is very important. They like to learn from hands-on experience, and they learn by watching. So I want to just put here a quote from a student. Is a student in the College of Engineering and Applied Sciences. I did not find the technical writing course to be useful at all. Most of the lectures were spent on in-class assignments and the instructor reading PowerPoint slides. Students only had very few opportunities to give presentations to actually practice communication skills. Perhaps if the course content was taught in a more interactive way, students like myself could have taken more from it. I think this is extremely revealing, because I've been in contact with many of the students in my department that they would like more powerful courses in communications. So they are able to provide like a better understanding to other people outside their disciplines of what they are doing and what they are capable to do. So let's talk a little bit also about the landscape, the part of the learning, okay? And we are going to talk about the lack of engineering knowledge, diversity and outreach, and the disparities in engineering interest developed before college. Only 14.5% of high school men and 2.5% of high school women intend to major in engineering. That's very low numbers for both of them, not only for women but also for men. Just 4% of underrepresented students have taken the math and science courses required for admission to most engineering schools. That's also very revealing. It is worrisome, in my case at least, because I do come from a complete different educational system where, since I basically was like 8 years old, every single year I had math and science in my curriculum. Diversity is crucial for innovation. In a global survey, 85% of corporate diversity and talent leaders agree that a diverse and inclusive workforce is crucial to encouraging different perspectives and ideas that drive innovation. Moreover, Long Island school districts, and there are 127 in such a small space, okay, have been characterized as the third most segregated in the US. So I have been in many panels where they say that, oh, Long Island is a very rich area. Well, there is also a very diverse area, and there are many students that qualify for free lunch, for example. So with high-need school districts comprised of 76% of Black and Hispanic students, New York City is just one school district, and it just hosts 230 students in grades 9 to 12. The district is also considered high need because 79% of them qualify for free or reduced lunch, and the student body is 70% underrepresented minority. But this is something that worries me particularly. even though all schools in Long Island offer physics, not all of them offer AP physics. And we have to keep in mind that today, the standards to getting an engineering school are extremely competitive. So that's the first thing. Second one is that only 28% of the schools in the Bronx offer physics, which means that those students are immediately shut down to be able to be eligible for many of the engineering schools. So you will hear that much of the outreach that I've been doing lately is related to educate teachers and educate counselors to help them understand what the engineering disciplines are and to help them understand what is the type of coursework that their students need to take in order to be eligible for applying to an engineering discipline. So, write one word that you associate with diversity. So we have broad, inclusion, respect, girls, opportunity, innovation, perspectives, collaboration, acceptance, identity, difference, opportunity, underrepresented, mixed. So we have a lot of different ways of interpreting the word and different ways to address what diversity is. The general definition of diversity is that understanding that each individual is unique. I would say that diversity is uniqueness, okay? And recognizing our individual differences. They can be along the dimensions of race, ethnicity, gender, sexual orientation, socioeconomic status, age, physical abilities, religious beliefs, political beliefs, other ideologies, disciplines, I would say. So anything that brings you to be a unique individual, that brings your diversity, your diverse personality, right? Diversity is a strength in creativity, broadness of new ideas, and embracing new perspectives to arrive at the most truly innovative, resource-smart solutions possible. And I think that is a very nice definition for diversity. I am a diverse person because of many reasons. I am the first master degree and PhD in my family, and I'm sure that many people here have the same feature. I'm the first generation in the US. I came to the US after my PhD. I'm a female. I am a Hispanic. I am computer science and engineering studies, so that is my basically professional background. Electrical engineering specialization. I have a knowledge of European and US educational system, and English is my second language, so that's also a distinctive thing. And the reason why I put this slide is to show that there are many issues related to each of them that we have to address when we have our students coming to talk to us. So there are students that is the first time that they are in the US, they have cultural walls that they need to just break in order to just be able to navigate our system. There are students who are US students who is the first time that they come to college. They also have some other different issues that they also need to just break. So there are many different things that make us a diverse and unique individual that need to be considered when we are dealing with all these diverse populations. It's not only about the gender or a racial diversity. So, more about talking about the broadening participation in engineering. Women remain underrepresented in science and engineering workforce. And there are different numbers that you can find in different websites. For example, the proportion of women employed in engineering, 15%. Physical science is 28%. And computer and mathematical science, 26%, is still very low. Historical underrepresented racial and ethnic groups continue to be part of the science and engineering workforce at rates lower than their presence in the US population. I think that is a very important remark. Okay, like we are going to see in the next slide how we can see the population of the US and how is the science and engineering workforce percentages, and we are going to see that basically there are two populations that represent most of the engineering professions. So 84% of the science engineering workforce are represented only by two demographic groups, and only 29 are represented by women. This is the slide that I was referring to. So you can see the US population, how it just breaks down, and what are the science and engineering occupation, which is basically like if you sum up the white men and the Asian men constitute much more than 50% of those professions. This is also very telling. This is a report that Google showed in 2017 about the breakdown of their professions overall. From women and men in technology, only 20% were women, and the leadership positions were also 25% only women representation. And for the technology workforce, we can see again that the Asian race ethnicity is 41% and 50% is the white. So, which department in the College of Engineering and Applied Sciences do you think that has the least percentage of female? And we have mechanical engineering, we have civil engineering, we have electrical engineering, we have computer engineering, we have biomedical engineering, applied math and statistics, technology and society. So mechanical, chemical also, sorry, I forgot about chemical engineering, civil engineering, electrical engineering, technology. I guess that mechanical is getting a lot of power there. So if we take, so there is a very big competition in the lower end, by the way. Right now is electrical and computer engineering, and I put them together, and they are about 15%. Mechanical is also about that one. Civil is also around that one. Biomedical engineering is 38%. Applied math is also in the range of biomedical engineering. And then in the middle is about computer science. If you average the whole entire college, currently in the cohort of 2019 is about 25%.
What's tech and society?
Tech and society is in the lower end as them, maybe like between electrical and computer science, and we're like in the 17%, but it's also in the lower end. And there is a very good resource online that is the institutional data, and you can just see it. You can just see from there exactly what are the percentages and the historical percentages in the departments. So the point is that there is a lot of room for improvement. By the way, if you can also see the racial breakdown, and you will also see that in that case, most of the departments are similar, but it is very low also. It's like around probably like 15% or so for African Americans, for example. So I also wanted to talk a little bit about outreach and what outreach means. And it is an activity providing services to any populations who might not otherwise have access to those services. There is another alternative definition that I found from the chair of Committee on Public Understanding Engineering that says the vast majority of Americans will never become engineers, but all Americans, young and old, can benefit by having a better understanding of the role of engineers play in the creation of technologies. And I will stop right there. I work in statistical signal processing, and when I say what I do, everybody looks at me like we don't understand anything of what you're doing. So part of my work over the years has been to demystify signal processing. And I have been in collaboration with some of my colleagues in order to just explain to basically kids that are from elementary and middle school that basically their cell phone is all about signal processing. And we have even just one of my colleagues made a video explaining how every single feature that you have there is part of what, as signal processing experts, we do in order to make it work. So that is extremely important. It's like, it sounds like it is very strange, signal processing, but at the end of the day, every day you use it, what we do for our daily professions. So awareness and preparation for engineering is something that is extremely important in our outreach activities. And I think this is a graph that is very important. Only 1 in 5 STEM college students feel their K-12 education prepare them for STEM college courses. 63% of high school graduates are not prepared from college level science, and 57% are not prepared for college level math. 26 is the number of industrialized nations whose high school students perform better than US students in math. 63%, nearly 2/3 of American teens, have never considered a career in engineering. 21st, US 15-year-olds currently rank 21st in science test scores among 34 developed nations, and 43% of female high school graduates said math was one of their favorite subjects, compared to 50% of male high school graduates. So it is not so like despair, right? Like they are close there, and though they don't get to engineering study later on. And I was today with one high school teacher before I came here, and she said, like, but I have so many students that are so talented and they could consider engineering, and though for whatever reason they tell me, no, that's not for me. So why is not for you? Like, we should provide an opportunity so they can just make a big assessment in if it is for you or not, right? So what are some of the proposals that we can just, or some of the initiatives that we can just put, that we can put in motion in order to just overcome all these problems? So I talked at the beginning about opportunity, role models, communication, and teamwork, but they are objectives within 3 main goals or missions that we can have in all these programs about diversity and outreach. That is recruitment. So we want more students, we want more people in engineering. Once we have them, we need to retain them, and then we need to partner. So we are going to have to partner between faculty, between staff, between industry and the university in order to be able to make all these things possible. Have you in your current role introduced yourself to a first-year student classroom of your home department? Or if you're a student, if you were in your classroom the first year that you arrive, have the teachers, not only the instructor of the course, but in general, the faculty members of your department, have they come and greet you and say, hey, hello, this is me, and I am here for you whenever you want? And the never and the occasionally are the responses that happen the most. Now, I teach in my department courses that are electives, mostly in the junior and senior year. We are only 4 female faculty out of 35 male faculty. So if I don't go to a first year course to tell them, hey, I am here, and I am a female faculty who you can talk whenever you want, many of those students will probably not see a female faculty until their junior year, because all my colleagues also teach upper level courses. So it is extremely important that from the very beginning, they can see somebody that is a faculty member, so they have continued to PhD and later to an academic life for them to be retained in the major, for them to feel related to them and come to them and be able to talk to somebody who have had the same challenges and opportunities. Because I always say that we have challenges and also opportunities, right? So, recruitment, retention, and partnership. There is a shortage of engineering talent. We have been talking about that because there is a lack of tradition and knowledge in engineering education. And I will talk about some of the programs that I have been engaged in the last few years about that. So we need to do some recruitment of more students. Also, we lose many students. And we need to rethink how we approach student success and retention. There are many reasons for dropping out. Only 25% is because of academic reasons. Students drop out because of belonging, because of confidence, because of academic engagement, and because of personal reasons. So we really need to talk to the students to see where they stand and why they don't feel engaged. Bill Gates and Steve Jobs were two examples that dropped out from college. Maybe because the curriculum was not innovative enough to keep them in the school, right? And because they had some different vision and they couldn't learn at the pace that they needed in order to develop what they were already envisioning. And we need to work together. So what I was also mentioning is that faculty, staff, industry, professional societies, they bring different perspectives. I learn a lot by talking to middle school and high school teachers and counselors, and how they have their own vision about college and how they have their own difficulties in order to engage some of their students. There are a number of leaders in engineering education. These are current leaders and emerging leaders. There was like a report that was published by MIT, that is the Global State of Art in Engineering Education, that was in 2018, where they analyze the characteristics of the current leaders in engineering education, the ones that just offer curriculum that maximize creative thinking, flexibility, personalized learning, and experiential learning. So all those institutions, they have extremely innovation in their curriculum, and they offer hands-on from the very beginning. When the students arrive, vertical integrated projects that we are just, is a very fancy word today in our college, for example, and outside our college, they offer all these kind of multidisciplinary projects for the students, co-ops for the students, a lot of hybrid learning, online plus in the classroom learning. And the challenges. So alignment of government and higher education goals, delivery of student-centered active learning, which is very difficult for large cohorts, changing the monodisciplinary nature of most of our departments to a broader education, like how we can collaborate with some other departments, how we can see like the electrical engineers offering some kind of knowledge to projects in medicine, for example, and how the engineers need to learn a little bit about the medicine and biology in order to be able to just reflect on that technical knowledge. Rethink faculty appointment and promotion that currently do not consider rewarding teaching achievement, and that is also very important. It is extremely important to basically renew, modernize education, but we also need to compensate, and we also need to reward our faculty for doing that. And the successful pathway should be based on research-based approaches, and I think this is the home in the College of Engineering and Applied Sciences for those research-based approaches. There are a few institutions in the US, Virginia Tech, I think University at Buffalo now, Purdue University, and Ohio State that have a Department of Engineering Education, but I think Technology and Society should be the one here at Stony Brook who should just push for those research-based approaches. And there are like different ways to approach in different themes or cohorts. Some of them could be like, and I just use some of their main topics that these institutions offer in order to just give you an idea of what for them are the trends in engineering education, in research in engineering education. Engineering education system is one of them, like the history of engineering education, leadership and policy. Broadening participation in engineering is another one. Diversity and inclusion, recruitment and retention, literacy, what I was talking about. Engineering learning, global engineering, that is extremely important topic. Inter and multidisciplinary learning, experiential learning, and pedagogies, assessment and evaluation, understanding what are the engineering learning process, curriculum interventions, data analytics. There are many, many different NSF solicitations where all these ideas can be just submitted to. I currently hold 3 NSF grants on education from different offices in the NSF, and they just have different objectives, each of them. The reason why I mention this is because right now it's a priority for NSF. It is there in the national conversation to just push for STEM learning and for STEM education. So the 3 things, the most important things that I would just conclude about this part. Fix the leaky pipeline. So we not only need to recruit, but also to retain, and even retain further. So in the case of underrepresented minorities, it's not enough just to make them through the 4th year. It's how we engage them to go to graduate school, to go later to become postdocs and faculty. Even if they decide to go to industry, how we keep also those underrepresented minorities to not change their career path and they continue to engineering. Many times I have encountered peers of mine that have completely redesigned their professional life, and they just put aside the engineering discipline to just do something else. Rethink systems and processes. So one of the things that I will be doing in these next few months is to basically have a series of workshops and of discussions about creating brave and inclusive spaces. So I will send some invitations to students, to faculty, to staff, to discuss about what should be the priorities of the college when we want to address diversity and inclusion in our college. And we should have informative sessions for search committees and chairs of how we are able to just create like a faculty body that is more diverse, and create a welcoming culture. That's extremely important, and I will just put a slide in a few minutes about something that we did for the WISE program, that was to create a new space where the students feel welcome, where the students have a sense of belonging, that they really can sit there, talk, and they can just really discuss about their challenges.
What's a brave space?
A brave space is where the students are not afraid of saying, or even faculty or even staff, about their challenges and their obstacles. And we find that that is extremely crucial for women and other underrepresented minorities, that they do not speak up. And that requires training not only in the student side, but also in the faculty side. Mm-hmm. So it is a both way. Does your department offer TA training? So yes, we offer formal training, not only related to technical materials, but also about pedagogical practices and cultural and social integration. We make them attend all the theoretical classes, and they may meet with instructors, but we do not follow up. And we let the training depend on the instructors. And we find those to be the most responded ones, okay? It is very important, as I said, to offer like a rounded training for the TAs. Just because, for example, in my home department, most of the TAs that we have come from a complete different culture. And the first week that they come here, they are just basically placed in the lab without even knowing about some of the challenges that our students have as undergraduate. They don't even know what is like the students that they are going to find there. So it's not only that they have to learn about the materials of that course or refresh their minds, but in addition to that, they encounter so many obstacles, even language obstacles for them. So that is something that is also very important and that needs to be basically like reframed. So there is like the 50K coalition goal that has a goal that is to have 50,000 diverse engineering graduates in 2025. And even though that sounds like a very low number, it's extremely very high compared to the graduations that we have right now. I think if I read it properly, currently there are only 4,000 African Americans that graduate in engineering in the whole country per year. So the 50K is in fact a huge goal for them. We need to help the students to better understand what engineers do in order for them to consider that as a possible career path. We need to educate school counselors, teachers, and administrators. We need to provide K-12 opportunities that are aligned to something that is called the Next Generation Science Standards. That is something that is mandated by many states now, and that is to integrate in the K-12 curriculum engineering. And the problem is that there are no engineering teachers in the schools. Or if there are, like, for example, physics teachers, they do not have the background in engineering in order to basically offer those practices. So we need to help them to just be able to implement those practices. We need to focus on high-need women and underrepresented populations through special programs and offer a modernized bridge programs. That's also very important. Like everybody says about accepting more women and more underrepresented minorities, but many of them, because we talk about at the beginning of the talk, they didn't have physics in their high school because they didn't offer it. So we need to be able to have a mechanism for those students, and Thomas has some of those programs in place, in order to be able to help them like overcome the obstacle of the fact that they didn't have that opportunity. And that lack of opportunity automatically close that possibility for them to become an engineer. And we need also to focus on retention and not just recruitment. So it's not enough that we just recruit them and we have in the first year like 35% of women or underrepresented minorities in our classroom. We need also to make sure that those students continue. We need to mentor and advise them. We need to offer them research opportunities, training of the TAs, so they feel also welcome, the students, by those TAs. And we need to have career planning and soft skills training. We need also the focus on retention is focus on retention also on faculty and staff who are women and underrepresented minorities. It's not only students. And that is what I said, there is more. First generation students, international experience for domestic students. So there are many different issues that come along with the fact that we are all diverse and unique. So I just wanted to talk very briefly about implementation opportunities and my own experience. And currently, I want to talk about what we do in terms of outreach in electrical and computer engineering, and we have a very rich program that basically is focused on two groups. On the one hand, we have activities that are focused on students, and we offer unique hands-on engineering experiences. When I say that they are unique, is because when the students come to our laboratories, they always leave with a device that they build by themselves. And we focus not only on building, designing, and optimizing that device, but also to understand the physics and the math behind them. All those activities are aligned to the next generation science standards. So when a school comes to us, and we have activities that run during the entire academic year, they come, they just are exposed to that, and they know that that piece of curriculum is aligned to the standards. We also offer summer camps for middle and high school students. This year we ran for the first time 2 camps, and one of them was attended only by women. And it was like a unique experience, and it was a great experience. Parents were so thankful to us because they were not able to find those opportunities anywhere else. Like they told us, are you going to have the next round of that, more advanced projects for them? It is very difficult for them because they don't see such opportunities being offered to them. And for some of them it's very cute because sometimes when they write, we ask them to write some of the feedback. They say like, I never expected to find so many people like me in a place like this. You know, like they are even shocked that they were able to find more like that. I mean, I graduated 4 out of 100 students in computer science and engineering. We also offer something that is very unique, and that we offer not only professional development, but also informative sessions for administrators, teachers, and counselors. We have like a big event coming up on election day where we are inviting teachers from high schools and middle schools to come and to do a hands-on activity. And the reason for that is we want to basically educate them on how to create curriculum in engineering so they can just bring it back to their schools. And that is very important in order to implement the next generation science standards. We also have workshops for counselors, and they are extremely successful. One of the things that we have done also is to create brochures about different engineering disciplines in a very basic format, so they can see, for example, what is the coursework that is required for the students in order to just be admitted to those programs. Like it's different in computer science or in computer engineering. Like computer engineering requires physics, computer science just requires math, for example. And we also have meetings with administrators, and we also just inform them not only about everything that we offer for their students or their teachers, but we also educate them in the next generation science standards. Just the last piece that I wanted to talk about is the Women in Science and Engineering program that basically follows the path that I mentioned. We have recruitment, retention, and partnership in the WISE program. We offer activities for K-12 students in the form of after-school programs and summer programs. Undergraduate students, we have a new innovative curriculum. It is an honors program that are 20 credits. The students take it along with their disciplinary study, and it allows them to just gain different skill sets. They allow them to gain knowledge about leadership, knowledge about experiential learning, service learning. And we also have opportunities for the first time for graduate students. We have been running for the last 2 years a workshop series in leadership. And we have like series, like 6 classes for them of 2-3 hours, where we talk to them about what is next, basically, like what are the challenges that they will encounter if they want to continue to an academic path, if they want to continue to a professional path, work-life balance, the presence of women in STEM, financial management, for example. So different things that are of extreme importance for them. And then we have faculty and professional role models. Last week or 2 weeks ago, I lost track of time, we have an event that we call it Wonder Women in Science and Engineering. And we invited all the students in the WISE program and the students that are graduate students that also act as mentors, because what we have is a mentoring pipeline. So undergraduate students are mentored by graduate students, and graduate students also mentor K-12 students. So we really follow a cycle where everybody can just basically serve as a role model of the previous generation, basically. And they came together and they were talking to professionals and faculty about the challenges and opportunities that they encounter to succeed in their professional lives. And the students were extremely engaged, and they found this kind of practices extremely valuable. this is basically what I just explained in wording, the different opportunities that we have with the different constituents of the WISE program, and everything is like following a mentoring line. And these are some fast facts. Well, this is the curriculum, the WISE curriculum. So as I said, this is taking along the same path of their discipline. And we have some courses that are very unique, like the Women Leadership in STEM that they take in the senior year. And these are some quick facts. So we expect to have 400 students this semester. We are just about to have it. Like we are just recruiting the last few students to make the 400 number. That is a 69% increase since 2015, and we cannot accept more just because of human power. Like we cannot just basically, like we just have 2 staff members in the WISE program, and we cannot host any more students. The retention is over 90% for the 4 years, and it is an honors program. And then the high school students, we also increased like 63% since 2015, and we have more than 60 students since 2019 in graduate study. So there are many other opportunities in diversity and outreach in the College of Engineering, and many of them you are familiar with here at the Technology and Society Department, like the LSAM programs, the C-STEP and the STEP programs, then there is AGEP too. So there are many other opportunities, and some of them I still have them missing, like the Garcia program, for example, that is not included. I just put the ones that are impacting the most number of students. And some of them I'm still learning about them. So there are many opportunities for engaging students that can be data generators for many of the projects that you do here in research as part of the Technology and Society Department. So as the last part, I just wanted to just finish with some conclusions and some remarks. We need to think ahead about education generations, because I mentioned Generation Z, but Generation Alpha is coming like in few years. So we are just even, we have to think about how we are going to just talk to these little people that are 1 year old, and they just respond to the poll like you and I, basically. We have to focus on recruitment, but also on retention and partnership to make all these things work. And notes on the side. So diversity is more than just having a woman in the lab. And I have listened to that claim in my own home department. So they said we are doing fantastic in terms of diversity because I have 1 woman in my lab. So that's not all diversity that we can account for. There are something that is called presidential mini grants that probably you have seen it here and there. And I mentioned this when we had the chairs and deans meetings, because I've been the chair of that committee for the last probably 3 or 4 years. And in the last 3 or 4 years, there were only 4 submissions from the College of Engineering and Applied Sciences out of maybe 200. And I think probably like 3 of them were coming from the WISE program. So it is not a lot of money, but it is something that can be used, and I think staff can apply for them, faculty can apply for them. It's just very little, but they can put in the map in order to ask for more institutional support from the President's office. It's important just to show that now that there is this national conversation about STEM diversity, that we care about that. Because as the chair of that committee, I have seen like many great projects, but I would love to see more on the College of Engineering and Applied Sciences. And we have to do a mindful diversity and outreach. Like we have to be careful with the word quota, and just say like we accept more just because we need to fill the gap. We need also to just promote excellence, because just filling the quota is damaging and hurting the underrepresented minorities. Like they work very hard in order to succeed in engineering or in STEM. So they act as role models just because they are extremely successful in those fields. So just some outreach feedback that I wanted to mention. And I just put 2 quotes. My masterpiece prototype of temperature measuring system took quite some time, but I persevered and finished off the day by passing the strobe test with flying colors. When I saw the ammeter reading 0.2 amps, I have never felt so alive. Who needs Six Flags when you have a Stony Brook Electrical Engineering camp? So these are students, many of them, that were coming to the camp and they were supported because they were high-need students. They were students that have never been to a university campus, and they meant a lot to them to have the opportunities to be here and say, I can be one of them. So it was extremely important for us to see that, for example, the second one said, I have taken physics, but I want to take AP physics now. So for him was a motivation to further pursue some knowledge in that field. And some conclusions regarding myself, like the 3 objectives that I mentioned at the beginning, they also apply to me, for example. So I had opportunity. I was able to just participate in the first computer science lab that was in my high school. Back then, that there were not so many. And I was able to just say, okay, let's try. And then I just like it, and I continue to do it. I have had role models. One of them was Professor Ferguson. He was one of my faculty mentors. And these are all my mentors in engineering education, and my mom, who was like a math and physics teacher, and communication and teamwork. So this is me like talking this year to the first year WISE students, what I was asking you, like have all the faculty introduce yourself in your first year that you came. These are some of the events that we had with some of the administrators in high school, and these are this summer camp, for example, when we had all the parents coming to see what their daughters had built in our laboratory. So now I am finishing. So if you could improve one thing related to engineering education in your department, what would it be? More money, okay. Probably more money, you need to implement some of those things, right? So that just basically concludes my talk. So if you have any questions, or if you'd like any additional information, I'd be happy.
Thank you, Monica. That's very inspiring and very challenging.
Yes.
So I think you got a lot of ideas of the things we could do. So have you any questions? We have 10 more minutes or so.
How is WISE funded? Is it through a grant, or is it the university funding, and where to get money from?
So WISE has 2 lines that are funded by the provost office, by the university, and then the rest are project-based. So basically, we do have some support from the institution, and then we do have several projects that allow us to run all the activities. We also have an alliance with Eastern BOCES for the middle school and high school program, and they are open to have many more like partnerships regarding this kind of opportunities.
But do you know what that means when she says Eastern Suffolk BOCES? It means they supply busing, right? They cover those miscellaneous costs that the schools have when they have to travel to the campus.
Yeah.
So she can run a program that may not cost really much of anything, because they'll cover all the expenses for the kids.
And many of the activities that we run them in the summer, or we run them in Saturdays, so they are drop-off for the students. Because one of the biggest challenges, and I didn't have time to mention it, about logistics, for example, in case of the teaching laboratories that we run all year round, is that the buses of the schools are extremely challenging to work with. It's not even about, it's just the bus companies, basically. Like, it's so hard, like, to accommodate for their schedules. Basically, when you are trying to just schedule something, they come, instead of dropping the students and going to do something else, they stay there for the whole day. So basically, you are paying for them to sit there in the parking lot. So there are like little things that are challenging, and that is especially heartbreaking for the high need schools. Like,
Danielle and Kevin.
For
Danielle?
me, couple things. I'm on the school board, and I think it'd be great if you would consider taking your talk, especially the part that's aimed at guidance counselors and teachers, and presenting at a school board association conference.
Sure.
You'd be great as a speaker for that, because then you're getting to the people that are making the money decisions
Sure.
and the hiring decisions. And as school board members, we're really confused about how to hire someone that can teach engineering. The people we're getting are people that have taught like industrial arts classes, and then they're going on for a certificate to teach engineering. So my son's a junior and he's taking engineering in the high school. They're just making projects out of things. It's not really engineering, but he's fortunate, he's in AP Physics too. So, but
Yeah.
the two are almost two different pathways in high school. And the pathway you're talking about is not the engineering that's
Yes.
actually being taught.
Yes, and we encounter those problems a lot. Like, for example, we used to have an after-school program for Central Islip, and we used to go every single Thursday there. And we were working with a technology teacher, but the first day that I went there, me and my colleague, we were surprised because for them technology was basically to do wood carving. And it is so different from what we understand here as technology that when we got into the lab, we were so excited. Oh, we are coming to the technology lab. And then we saw it and we said, like, but they have like saws to just cut. I mean, it was a completely mindset of what we understand by engineering and what they were understanding by our technology.
Right, and schools need sort of an example of the steps to
Yes.
take to get from one to the other. Because in my school, we're putting in like STEAM rooms and STEM labs. Our wealth ratio is 1, so we're kind of in the middle. But we don't even really know what the curriculum in those rooms is going to be. And the teachers that we have, they're busy, you know.
Yeah, and we also tell them, like, we have a new lab in electrical engineering, and you cannot imagine how many requests I have to visit the lab from high schools because they want to replicate the lab in their schools because now they are getting support for doing that. But I always tell them, but it's not about to replicate the lab, it's what you're going to do later on with the lab. Because if you don't know what to do with an oscilloscope, for example, why are you spending $10,000 on that piece of equipment? So it is very important, and I would like that you get me in touch with those people. I would be happy to talk to them.
Okay, great.
Kevin next, and then Rita.
So what's the rationale behind making the WISE program only an honors program? And is that restricting participation for women in engineering?
In which sense restricting?
Well, restricting it to only an honors program, are you excluding
No,
more average students?
No. The reason, so WISE always had, so basically the way that you get into the WISE program is when you apply to the university, you apply to the honors program, the same way as you can apply to honors or you can apply to university scholars. So basically you first have to be accepted in the university, in the School of Engineering or in your major before you get accepted to WISE or honors or university scholars. Now WISE became an honors program since we got approval of the curriculum. So before there were a couple of courses that were offered by WISE, but now we do have these 20 credits, and when the students take those 20 credits, they get the mention when they graduate of WISE honors. But then on the other side that I want also to mention is that those credits that the students take, that they are assigned from their discipline, like for example, they just graduate from civil engineering and they are in the WISE program, they take those 20 credits, but those 20 credits also account for general education credits that they need to take for Stony Brook graduation. But they are credits that I would say they are targeting skills that they will like to know anyway, regardless of their education. So like leadership skills, I wish that I would have that. We address things like salary negotiation. I wish that somebody would have instructed me and educated me in those issues. So they get that mention, that honors mention, once they have taken that curriculum.
Yeah, makes sense.
Rita?
Thank you.
Back in the 90s, our department had an Eisenhower grant that I think it was Tom Leo who first wrote it. It was called The Principles of Engineering. And in the summer, and I know this because I was a grad student and I ran it a couple of summers, they would bring teachers in from the various high schools, and that's what they did, the Principles of Engineering. And it was a wonderful program, I have to say. And that's something we should probably look at, because like you said, it's okay to build the lab, but do you know what to teach in the lab? And most of them don't. That's the sad part.
So we got also approval to a course that is similar to what you're describing, that is called Introduction to Engineering. That basically has like 3 modules. One tries to match the curriculum of physics with electrical, computer, and mechanical engineering. The other one tries to match a curriculum of math in the schools with computer science. And the third one tries to match science and biology curriculum with biomedical engineering. So it's a very, in my opinion, a very good overview of different engineering disciplines that it is matched to the school curriculum. The main challenge, we offer it in the summer, is that the teachers do not want to pay for coming to Stony Brook. So in my opinion, the school system, in order to just implement the next generation science standards, should find mechanisms to just pay for that professional development of their teachers so they can get better prepared. What we did in the last 2 years is that we offer either professional development workshops that are for 1 day for the teachers so they can learn. And the one on November 5th includes curriculum writing, for example, in engineering. Or what we did is to offer evening classes for them, like a module that lasted maybe for 3 or 4 sessions. And they were coming for each session like 3 hours each time. And they could also learn some of that curriculum. And for that, they were more welcoming. Like some of them were, for example, in the master teacher program, and they get paid to do that, so they were very happy to do that. But it is a challenge, even if you offer them a great courses like the one that you mentioned, or this one.
It was all covered because it was an Eisenhower grant, so they didn't have to pay anything. It was like 3 or 4 weeks. It was really fantastic.
I have a feeling that in 2020, the schools are mandated to implement it. So I think the principals and administrators will really say we need help. And that will be the moment where they will just basically reach out and they will say we need help. Because I talked to some of the teachers 2 years ago and they said, but we still are a long way to go until 2020. So that was also their deadline mentality also.
Yeah, you have to catch them when they're young. You got to get some of those young ones in there because the older ones don't really want to do it. They want to be paid to do everything, so it's hard.
One more question, David.
So, great talk.
Thank you.
Very inspiring. Lots of really wonderful ideas. But many of the things that you mentioned run up against hard realities, especially associated with evaluation. So you showed, how poorly U.S. students score on standardized tests, but our standardized tests a really good evaluation of the type of learning you want to have happen. We had in the engineering college we have this great reverence for ABET and its standards, and so we become fact-driven in how we want to teach things. When you set up this new WISE curriculum, you had to do backflips to fit those 20 credits into schedules, and as a result, the students now in the WISE program don't take some of the humanities courses that would give them a more diverse and how do you implement this wonderful vision you have in a world that's not essentially friendly to what you want to do?
So for many of the programs, you need a trade-off. So, for example, in the K-12 programs, you need to provide them as extracurriculum activities or need to go there to do it. Like, we have tried all possibilities with them. With the WISE program is what you said, we do have a course that covers humanities too. So I sat down with people in the English department. So one of the courses was basically covering for the humanities general education requirement. So my general thing is that it takes a lot of effort. So like it takes a lot of time and effort in order to accommodate not only for the vision and the nice vision, but then to make it work in a very strict environment that we are running about. For the WISE program, what we did, for example, with the curriculum is before we jump into creating anything about the curriculum, we did a research-based analysis of what students wanted, what industry wanted, and what faculty wanted. And we tried to accommodate for the entire vision of all of them. So we basically had a questionnaire interviews and everything. We've had focus groups with all the students from previous generations, and we said if you were to take a course on humanities, and we gave them some examples, would you be willing to take something like that, or you'd rather take? And we saw that many of those students were taking, for example, courses in women's studies. So I work personally with English and women's studies in order to create those courses. You need to be very creative about how to go from the evaluation part in order to accommodate for that.
And you also have to win over the minds of the engineers. I mean, when the vision that diversity is crucial for innovation sounds like, especially in our times where so-called political correctness is under attack, it sounds like the correct idea. Mm-hmm. But I think if you explain that, you mentioned that in your talk, that there are multiple perspectives out there, and part of the solution is understanding the problem. And I think if you don't see the problem, mm-hmm. and so the diversity or the monoculture, the non-diversity, does not see certain problems. Mm-hmm. So once you can convince the engineers, who are the proverbial group of saying, give me a problem and I solve mm-hmm. it, if you say, look, here is a problem that you do not recognize because you have less diversity mm-hmm. in your group. So seeing the problem is the beginning of the solution, and not seeing the problem is the continuation mm-hmm. of the old ways. So it is not simply politically correct, mm-hmm. it is indeed necessary, if there are problems out there that we do not see that affect society, technology will not help, mm-hmm. and on and on. So it mm-hmm. is also the thinking about it mm-hmm. has to go deeper and further and explain so that your colleagues in electrical engineering and in the other mm-hmm. technical fields say, mm-hmm. maybe. Yeah. And so that's then also mm-hmm. a pathway towards solution, because the tradition blocks mm-hmm. the innovation.
Yeah. And following up on what Wolf is saying, when I had to give a similar talk at the Deans and Chairs meeting, I told the Dean of Engineering that on purpose I was not going to use the words diversity or outreach or inclusion, and I was going to try them to use it as little as I could, because those are words that many times they just assume but we are doing great because I have a woman in my lab, So, and then the way that I was posing some of the questions, they started realizing that, but it is true, diversity is not only about the woman in the lab, just by reframing how I was presenting it. So all those things are extremely important, the way that we just basically have the conversation. So for some of them, don't make it feel intimidating. And the same happens, for example, when we talk to high school teachers. You tell them engineering, and they immediately they don't want to come to our labs the moment that they see engineering teaching laboratories, just because they think that they are going to be intimidated and they are going to feel uncomfortable to bring those students because they do not know much about that. But when you explain to them the kind of activity that we do with them and how the curriculum that they explain or they educate them with is about, then they say, oh, okay, so now I feel much better about what you are doing there, and I think it will be very valuable, and I will feel more comfortable to bring them. So many times it's about how do you make people comfortable with the wording that you're using.
Thank you, Monica. That's just the beginning of a conversation, I would say.
I think so too.